Yeah, okay. I'll try making a guide for FP. All the Explorer mages have a lot of similarities when it comes down to utility, playstyle, and mobility, and each one serves their own purpose. In Fire Poison Mage's case, they've historically been great bossers, ever since around the Red update or so. That kind of remains true to this day, though mostly in solo play, focusing more on a constant DPM playstyle. At the least, their most recent rework in Destiny only strengthened their core kit, while keeping most of the same playstyle intact. First job is the same across all three Explorer mages, a couple passives for mana and defense, a basic mobbing skill, and the iconic mage skill, Teleport. Hold the direction, click the skill, and you teleport that way. It can be used in the air as well as on ropes and ladders, though you can only use it in the air if there's a nearby platform in range to teleport to. Mana Wave is your vertical mobility skill, use it while airborne to shoot yourself up, hold it to float in the air for a few seconds. You can use this with teleport to reach higher platforms and snap right to them. Lastly at first, Magic Guard is the most important toggle most mage classes get that offsets most of your damage taken to your mana rather than your health. You'll want this on forever. Second job is where the real guide starts, because now you're past the basics and truly a magician of poison and fire. Here's your poison skill, Poison Breath. It just makes a big cloud attack around you that poisons enemies with damage over time, also known as DOT or DOT, and does a bunch of hits to nearby enemies. Where's your fire skill? Right here! Wait, that's 2 fire skills. Okay, so this one, Ignite, is a toggle that has a chance to make firewalls with every fire attack you do, and those walls damage enemies for a few seconds when they come in contact with them. Now this other fire skill, Flame Orb, just whips a bunch of fireballs at enemies in front of you. This works with the Ignite toggle, because it's a flame skill. Everything else at second job is just helpful passives, and meditation, which is a buff that just gives you and your whole party some magic attack. Third job has a few more passives. This buff with a 4-minute cooldown when it blocks 10 debilitating status conditions, and a couple more toggles. Teleport Boost just increases the distance of your teleport both vertically and horizontally, and Teleport Mastery makes your teleports damage enemies with a chance to stun them. Explosion does a big boom around you, Poison Mist makes a big poison cloud around you that does damage over time to all enemies within it, and Creeping Toxin places down a totem that makes poison pools on the platform it was placed on. When you use fire skills on them, these pools blow up and can even chain to nearby pools. This is a really good grinding skill if you place it down in the right spots, especially since it does more damage to normal enemies. Fourth job, meet Maple Warrior in Heroes Will. Every class gets these. Now that we're all acquainted, fourth job also gives a bunch more passives, including this one, Fervent Drain, that becomes semi-important at fifth job. For now it just slightly increases the damage of your dots. There's also this passive that ups your buff duration on all your buffs to 1.5 times the normal length. Even this one, Infinity, which keeps constantly restoring your health and mana over its duration, as well as initially increasing your final damage a lot, and going up even higher at intervals, up to a cap. 3-minute cooldown, but this is your most important buff. Ifrit is your fiery summon friend that attacks nearby enemies and does damage over time to them. No cooldown and pretty long duration of a little over 5 minutes. Mist Eruption takes your poison mist clouds from third job and blows them up. The more dots stacked onto enemies, the more damage it does. 10-second cooldown going down to 8 seconds if the enemy is hit with 5 or more explosions. Flame Haze is a single target skill that shoots a big fireball forward and leaves a poison mist cloud where it hits an enemy, or where you're standing if it doesn't hit an enemy. 10-second cooldown. Flame Sweep is your main everything attack for both grinding and bossing. All it really does is shoot a bunch of fire forward in front of you and burn enemies with a dot, but it's fast, has a good range, and does a bunch of lines. Also, you can spam it. That's the main reason it's so good. Lastly, Meteor Shower is a little less than screen-wide attack that shoots meteors around you at enemies. It also adds a passive to all your attacks that summons a meteorite at enemies. 45-second cooldown. Hyper skills start you off with another toggle. This one is Inferno Aura, and it just puts fire around you that damages nearby enemies, so long as you have the mana to keep it going. It also ignores magic cancel and damage reflect. Epic Adventure most classes get, 10% damage for a minute, applies to all Explorer classes in your party, 2-minute cooldown. Lastly, Megiddo Flame shoots out 3 blue balls that rush towards enemies, targeting whichever has the highest health first, and splitting when it hits the first enemy, up to 11 extra flames, including the initial one. So I think like 33 total flames. This also ignores magic cancel and damage reflect, 50-second cooldown. For hyper passives, ignore all the poison mist upgrades. This is because the initial cloud doesn't really do damage, and it's more so a vehicle for blowing them up with Mist Eruption. That's why instead, you upgrade everything for Mist Eruption. Half the cooldown for more booms, a bit more IED, and extra damage. As for Flame Sweep, get Reinforce for the extra damage, and Extra Strike for an extra line of damage, since you'll be spamming it pretty much constantly. Cripple isn't very useful since it only increases the damage on the dot of Flame Sweep. 5th job gives another skill similar to Megiddo Flame, called Dot Punisher, that varies in how many balls it summons, depending on how many dots you have on enemies when you cast it. Initially it casts 15, and increases by 1 for every 1 extra dot on nearby enemies, up to 25 max. When multiple fireballs hit the same enemy, their damage is reduced per subsequent hit, 25-second cooldown. Elemental Fury upgrades your Ifrit into a giant flaming titan, damaging all enemies caught in its AoE, area of effect, for 2 seconds, and increasing in duration by 0.6 seconds per stack of Fervent Drain, the dot passive from 4th job. You can see how many stacks you're at up in your buff bar at the top right. This one, right here. I believe it caps out at 5, so in total this skill can last up to 5 seconds at max Fervent stacks, 75-second cooldown. Poison Chain is a skill. Oh my god, that's a lot of text. That's a lot of text. It's a skill that poisons enemies in a big AoE around you, and chains the poison onto nearby enemies at intervals. It also explodes bursts of poison a few times on said affected enemies. If there are no nearby enemies to poison, it instead places a crystal that's ready to poison the next nearby enemy that comes close to it, that lasts for 5 seconds, 25-second cooldown. Poison Nova sends out a bunch of slow-moving poison clouds from your casting location, in a set pattern that simply fade away at the end of their range. If you use Mist Eruption while they're still out, after at least 2 seconds of using Poison Nova, it explodes all of them. Though like Dot Punisher, the more explosions that hit the same enemy, the less damage each subsequent explosion does. 25-second cooldown. Wait, most of Fire Poison's 5th skills are 25-second cooldown. That's cool. Other useful nodes at 5th are shared across all Explorer mages. Obviously all Explorers get Maple Goddess's Blessing, which holds 2 charges and builds up 1 charge every 3 minutes, and it increases your damage and stats for Maple Warrior for a whole minute. There's also Mana Overload. 1 more toggle that increases the final damage of almost everything you do whatsoever, at the cost of more mana. 1 minute cooldown from when you initially toggle on this skill. Ethereal Form is like a mage version of Darksight, lasts 3 seconds, gives super stance, reduces your damage, but doesn't prevent all damage like one-shots and such. Also a 1 minute cooldown. Lastly, the most important other 5th job Explorer mage skill, Unreliable Memory. It gives you an option to choose between 6 skills in your kit to use a second time. To choose these skills, use the other skill it gives when you equip the Unreliable Memory node, Mind Delve, which brings up this cool looking menu. Out of all of these, the only one you'll want to be selecting is Infinity, so now you have 2 uses of it you can cycle between, which ups your damage obscenely. The cooldown varies depending on, as the skill itself says, a fixed amount according to set probability rates, but it does go down per level, and at max the cooldown's upper limit is 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Usually it doesn't go that high, and on average from what I can tell, it's roughly around 4 to 5 minutes. Fire Poison on the surface may look daunting, but their playstyle is really simple in practice. To make them easy, first off, obviously always have most, if not all, your toggles on, as with any class, and especially mages due to Magic Guard. Though if you're trying to save on mana, disable Inferno Aura, because that drains you 100 mana per second. Also try to keep in mind this class has nearly everything in their kit on a short cooldown, all with big AoEs too, so remember to use them off cooldown every time you get the chance, for most situations. For bossing, you're one of the odd one out classes that doesn't benefit from a typical bind and burst setup, so things like Ring of Restraint or saving everything for a big burst doesn't benefit you as much as it would most other classes. You should still, however, use AB's Link skill, Terms and Conditions, since your extra buff duration affects the time of that too. That, paired with Dot Punisher and Elemental Fury at 4 to 5 Fervent Drain stacks, and then keep cycling everything else in your kit throughout the entire boss fight. You do damage per minute, not damage per second. For grinding, all you really have to do is find a map that benefits Creeping Toxin, like one with a high mob density on one large platform, usually preferably on the ground of said map. Then place Urda Fountain wherever else you think fits best, will skill in another part of the map if you have that on a node slot, and just keep using your big AoEs. Anything from 5th job is good to cover a chunk of the map at all times, and since all their cooldowns are fairly low, you can comfortably keep cycling all of them. Same with Megiddo and Meteor Shower. For everything else, or if nothing is off cooldown, Flame Sweep cleans out the remainder of the map fairly well. You don't have to move around too much, and anything just out of reach usually still gets blown up or poisoned from something reaching them. Since Infinity is your most important buff, and you also dedicate a whole other spell in its 5th job solely to it, yeah, you'll want it on for as long as you can have it on. To do this, get as much sources of buff duration as you can get, to bring that uptime as close to 100% as you possibly can. Cycling Infinity with high buff duration is a core part of every Explorer Mage's kit. Again, echoing my Bishop guide, I don't think it's possible to naturally achieve 100% uptime without event buffs, but the main sources of it would be from your buff mastery passive back in 4th job, Mechanics Legion block, the Legion squares in general for buff duration, decent combat orders, and inner ability. You'll want to be aiming for around 163% or higher if you can. Speaking of inner ability, for that you'll want to get attack speed +1 or buff duration for the first line, and any mix of abnormal status damage, boss damage, crit rate, or buff duration if you didn't get it for the 2nd and 3rd lines. You can also settle for Mesa or drop rate, or something like magic attack if you wanted to too. I also have to mention that attack speed alone without buff duration is not good to settle on. Either get attack speed first line with buff duration 2nd or 3rd line, or just buff duration first line. This was pointed out to me in my Bishop guide, and it still remains true for Fire Poison Mage. The attack speed increase is wasted without that extra buff duration. Link skills are the same as most other classes as usual. For grinding, something along the lines of this, going for Evan, Aran, and Mercedes links, Lara if you needed a bit more normal enemy damage, and for bossing, these. Again, one you'll truly want to prioritize getting is AB's Terms and Conditions. It's great across all Explorer Mages because buff duration affects how long it lasts, which is super useful for a longer burst time. For Trinodes, you have a lot to choose from, but almost all of them are useful to have. The main one to aim for would be Flame Sweep, Ignite, and Teleport Mastery, which also enhances Creeping Toxin. You'll be spamming these the most across both grinding and bossing, so it makes the most sense. The second one consists of Flame Haze, Mist Eruption, and Meteor Shower. These are all shortish cooldown skills and all do pretty nice damage if you remember to use them whenever they come off cooldown. The third Trinode set is Megiddo Flame, Ifrit, and Inferno Aura. This one you apparently don't have to worry about until much later once you get to slightly more endgame content, and or if you plan on maining this class. As for if you should use a staff or a wand, there is no reason to ever pick a wand over staff beyond looks. The attack speed penalty of staves doesn't apply to spellcast speed, and they give more magic attack. And yes, the attack speed inner ability is separate from the weapon attack speed for some reason. Anyways, the most you'll be missing out on beyond some wands looking really cool is just the extra 5% crit rate when you have one equipped, from all the way back at first job's MP boost. Even then, the magic attack increase you get between the same exact level of wand and staff is very minimal. Like at Arcane Umbra and Genesis, the difference between the two is 6 whole magic attack. So yeah, just pick whichever one you prefer more, keeping in mind the only difference between the two functionally is one gives slightly more magic attack, and the other gives slightly more crit rate. Cooldown hats can be pretty helpful for Fire Poison Mage too. A lot of their skills in their entire kit have shorter cooldowns, and having anywhere from -2 seconds to -4 seconds on your hat can still help out a lot. -5 or 6 seconds would be even better if you somehow manage to get that, but that's going to cost you potentially hundreds of billions of mesos and black cubes just to attempt to get, possibly more. So if you wanted a bit of extra damage from your skills having shorter cooldowns, and you have the money for it, try and get a cooldown hat. Like most other classes that get the option between a shield or a secondary, use a shield. This is because it can be Starforced, whereas secondaries can't. In the case of Mage Shields, the best in slot option, Deimos Sage Shield, can be enhanced up to 20 stars. It also shares the same potential tier as the strongest secondary available to you, the Princess Snow one, so it's just better because of the fact it could be Starforced. The shield can only be crafted through smithing, and the recipe drops from these mobs in Future Irv, or more commonly Cygnus herself. For Burst/BA, make sure all your toggles are on, pop all your buffs including Infinity, then your shorter buffs like Maple Goddess's Blessing, Epic Adventure, and then Flame Haze, Poison Mist, Flame Sweep, Megiddo Flame, and Teleport Mastery for your Fervent Drain stacks. I don't think the order of those matter much. After that, pop a B-Link if you have that, Will Skill 2, then use Elemental Fury, and keep using everything else off cooldown, and Flame Sweep when nothing is currently off cooldown. Shorten down further, turn toggles on, buff up, Infinity, more buffs, stack up a bunch of your dots, AB and Will Skill, Elemental Fury, then spam Flame Sweep in all your attacks with cooldowns whenever they come off cooldown. I've watched a few more recent burst videos for this class, looked through the entire FP section of the Explorer Mage Discord, tried interpolating the ever so slightly cryptic burst rotation picture posted in their information channel, double-checked their guide, tried reading what I could find through the search function, and as far as I can tell, Fire Poison's entire burst is mostly just use everything off cooldown once you get a big Elemental Fury going. On the topic of all the things I just mentioned, thanks to the Explorer Mage Discord for linking all of that stuff and housing all that information. Fire Poison Mage isn't too technical, outside of how a lot of their buffs and dots work, and they haven't even changed that much since their Destiny rework. Most of their core kit remains the same, aside from some skills and bigger hitboxes so they can finally hit Zakum's top arms and such. As always, thanks for watching, hopefully you've learned something about FP from this video, and thanks for all the comments suggesting this class. It was pretty fun learning a bit more about a class I've always been curious about, but always saw as too complicated for my sometimes forgetful brain. If there's more classes you want to see me cover, shoot me some suggestions down below in the comments. I have ideas for what I want to cover next, but hey, y'all might be able to change my mind again. That's all.